Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Two Wise Girls podcast. We have some more Lost Hero chapters for you today, and then we're going to talk about some things happening in the reality TV world of all places that kind of exploded last week.
Okay.
We'll start with the Lost Hero just because we can ramble forever. Like, the reality TV stuff managed to hit all of our special interests at once for some reason. So for today we read, there were 2 Jason chapters followed by 2 Piper chapters. And the Jason chapters very much are reinforcing this idea of Jason is not where he's supposed to be. There's something very Roman about him. He keeps saying all the Roman names. He keeps randomly, interjecting things in Latin. So, at some point, I'm just waiting for someone to be like, "You're Roman, aren't you?"
You can tell, well, this is how I took it, that Annabeth has an idea, but she almost doesn't want to say it out loud because it's not something that the kids at this camp honestly don't even know that the other one is even there. I think they tell you at a certain point, but the Roman kids know that the Greek camp exists, but I think that's what it is, but the Greek kids have no clue. And so, at least for her, she's like, he's clearly Roman, but why would he be Roman when they've never run into a Roman demigod before? But this part with him especially was interesting to me with Chiron, because Chiron basically had a Chiron panic attack when he met him.
Yeah, Chiron is all okay, so Chiron's panic attack that she's talking about is the first thing Chiron says to Jason is, "You should be dead." And that does not get explained at all in this reading of these 2 chapters. So I was like, what the hell is Chiron on right now? Yeah. So where we left Jason off, he was getting escorted by Drew, one of the Aphrodite kids, to the big house. And she's very much doing this flirty thing. He talks about how her smell is enticing, how her makeup grabs his attention and stuff like that. All things that scream Aphrodite in your face. Drew kind of challenges him on, is that girl you were with your girlfriend? Which we know that she's not really, even if everybody in the current universe is led to believe it. But Jason admits he felt a pull to kiss her when he was saving her. And then also, he just feels that loyalty to her because he woke up holding her hand. She must mean something.
It took "You should be dead" to make way more sense way later in this book when they tell everybody what Jason's last name is. Yes. When he remembers it. But yeah, this was very interesting to just have Chiron be so cryptic in a way that he usually isn't, because he's literally not allowed to say. He cannot. This is the one of the biggest things that he can't say. So it's what is he supposed to say when one of the Roman kids is suddenly at camp? What? They made all these rules so you guys would never be here.
Yeah.
Why are you suddenly here now?
And the interesting thing too is we know Mr. D is not in camp, but Mr. D was like, I'm gonna make sure they feel my presence, and that is sprinkled into this first chapter too. So we find out the big house is completely covered in vines, that there's all of these masks, which for those of you that don't know Dionysus theater, there's a connection there. So there's a bunch of different types of masks, including the ones that we think of, the Greek tragedy and comedy ones, but Mardi Gras masks, carnival masks, and there is a it's just the head, right, of a is it a cheetah?
It's another animal, but it's just the head.
Yeah.
That can talk and is hungry and stuff.
Yeah, Seymour. Where is it? A leopard. That's what it is. I always get my spotted cat animals mixed up. But yeah, so we find out Mr. D saw the leopard at a Long Island garage sale, and all Chiron says about like what happened is he's like he decided Seymour deserved to be alive again, but what happened to the owner is a lot worse than being a reincarnated head.
Okay then.
Yeah. Jason does ask Chiron about the what did you mean when you said I should be dead? And Chiron says, my boy, do you know what those marks on your arm mean? The color of your shirt. Do you remember anything?
Mm-hmm.
And Jason's just like, nope, nothing. And it's kind of funny that he says that because he can summon the memories, it feels like, when we're reading these chapters. But when someone just outright asks him, do you remember anything? He's like, no, nothing.
Yeah, and I honestly don't know how how it works when you really can't remember anything. If that's accurate or not, I have no idea. I've never lost my memory like that. And so I know from just watching like TV and movies is how they kind of do it, that like you just start saying things and you don't know why you know it. But I honestly don't know if that's actually accurate.
Yeah,
or if that's just like a trope.
The closest in real life thing that I can think of is how when you give a dementia patient a like baby doll,
Yeah,
that they treat it like a real baby. And so I feel like, yeah, maybe there's some things that are so innate that just come back, but it's hard to say. And then we get this like confirmation that Jason knows, but he doesn't know because Chiron starts trying to explain the whole, so you know how Greek mythology is a thing. Well, that's actually real. But Jason seems to already know this. He's like, yeah, the gods are real and they move places, like from ancient Greece to Rome. And part of me is like, okay, he gets this enough to get that. But for him to say Rome as the next example, it's basically like, I'm only going to go one shot down the line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Chiron remarks this, I couldn't have said it better. So you also know the gods are real. You've already been claimed, haven't you? And Jason says yes, but at this point, still like, when you ask him who, he's like, who knows? Jason randomly starts speaking Latin. He says, you know, what was that in Latin? Chiron says, most demigods recognize a few phrases, of course, it's in their blood, but not as much as ancient Greek. None can speak Latin fluently without practice. And it was an interesting way for Rick to bring Latin back because we know Mr. Brenner started out as a Latin teacher. Mm-hmm. So for him to be like, well, they kind of just get it, you know, but they also don't know it to the depth they know ancient Greek. It's interesting to think of that, like, that connection is there, but then it, like, if you take that connection further down the line, to me, it starts losing its power because eventually, like, wouldn't they then be able to read English? Because theoretically, parts of it evolved out of Latin and Greek. But I don't know. I'm thinking about this way too much, is what I'm saying. Chiron says here, it is one of those things. We've talked about this of Chiron as a father figure. And I know, like, one of my few mythology videos that actually went off was me talking about how Philoctetes from Disney's Hercules is a Chiron play. And that Philoctetes character, they made very concerned about, like, the heroes he used to train. This is, like, one of the first times we get that from Chiron, I feel like, in a very direct way of him saying, I taught your namesake, you know, the original Jason. He had a hard path. I've seen many heroes come and go. Occasionally they have happy endings. Mostly they don't. It breaks my heart, like losing a child each time one of my pupils dies. But you're not like any people I've ever taught. Your presence here could be a disaster.
Mm-hmm. And doesn't he say something too about how, like, Percy being able to, like, win the Titan War gave him hope that maybe things would be okay for a while?
Yeah, I hope that after Percy's success, and he kind of gets cut off by Jason there, but
yeah,
I hope that after he succeeded in the Titan War and saved Mount Olympus, we might have some peace. I might be able to enjoy one final triumph, a happy ending, and perhaps retire quietly. Poor Chiron.
Yeah.
He's exhausted.
Yeah. And that's kind of just how people who care about kids, at least when people work with kids that actually care about kids, that's how you feel about them. You
Mhm.
just, you want them to be okay, and it's hard when you see them not, when a lot of times they're not. We're always defending Chiron, I feel like. But that's
Yeah.
really like who, when you're an adult reading these books, it's like, yeah, if you're a person and if you're also an adult that cares about kids going through difficult times, that's how you feel about them. You just always think about them and hope that they're okay. And it's just
Yeah.
nice to see him just be like, dang it, I thought that everything would be fine, and now this child shows up and I don't know what the heck's going on anymore.
Yeah. Poor Chiron. Let's see. And this is where we get a cryptic little Chiron talking about, I've sworn an oath not to talk about something, and you have to do with this something I'm not allowed to talk about. But he actually says, I swore on the river Styx. So it's a very serious, he can't tell them.
No, he really can't.
An apparition shows up. Yeah, it comes out of Seymour's mouth, and at first it had spoken, then dark mist boiled out of Seymour's mouth, and even worse thought occurred to Jason, storm spirits. See, he grabs his coin, changes it into a sword, and the mist takes the form of a woman in black robes. Her face was hooded, but her eyes glowed in the darkness. Over her shoulders, she wore a goatskin cloak. Jason wasn't sure how he knew it was goatskin, but he recognized it and knew it was important. Um, and she says something to him about she is his patron, that he has been promised to her by his father, and that she needs to be saved by him. It's his duty at this point now.
Mm-hmm.
And Jason, of course, fights this because one of the things that she says is, he named you Jason after my favorite mortal. You belong to me. And Jason's like, whoa, I don't belong to anybody.
Calm down.
Yes, calm down, lady. But she says, now is the time to pay your debt. Find my prison, free me, or their king will rise from the earth and I will be destroyed. You will never retrieve your memory. And then the apparition tells him you have until solstice, which is 4 days from where we're at in the book. She dissolves and then goes back into the leopard's mouth. The Annabeth comes in through the end of this with Piper and Rachel. Piper is passed out, and we're kind of not really told until the next chapter that Jason knows that it's Juno, but like the Roman equivalent of Hera. The goatskin being one of the Roman features and not one of the Greek features. Beth also notes the apparition said she's your patron, not your godly parent. And so I feel like that was definitely another hint of like, this person isn't his parent, because we still don't know. Like, unless you know, you don't know. You know what I mean? That his godly parent is going to turn out to be Jupiter at this point. But he's just like had this connection to Hera that seems to be showing up all over the place in this book so far.
Hera.
Yeah. Hera said she's been trying to break through her prison bonds for a month, and Annabeth notes that's how long Olympus has been closed. So the gods must know that this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Jason says, but why use her energy to send me here? She wiped my memory, plopped me into the wilderness school field trip, and sent you a dream vision to come pick me up. Why am I so important? Why not just send an emergency flare to the other gods? Let them know where she is so they bust her out. And Rachel reminds us that in this universe, heroes need to do God's bidding.
Mm-hmm. They can do things that the other gods can't.
Yeah. Rachel also is like making the connection. Well, Piper saw something with Hera right before she passed out. Same message, free me. So they have to be linked somehow. And this also is all somehow linked to Percy disappearing on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's see. Jason and Annabeth kind of like briefly talk about the oath that Chiron's mentioned, and Annabeth's like, he is acting strange, but I have no idea what this oath is. Let's see. And then because Jason doesn't remember anything, Annabeth is like, well, if Chiron can't help us out, let's take you to cabin 15, which for us is a new cabin for like anyone who's read just the first 5 books. It turns out to be Hypnosis' cabin. And Annabeth kind of figures maybe we can have one of these kids hypnotize you back into remembering who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. The name of the kid that they end up talking to is Clovis. Basically everything in this cabin makes them want to fall asleep. It smells super comforting. Like they start dozing off the moment they get in there. Clovis is like in and out of sleeping himself and needs to be constantly reminded to stay on task. Let's see. And when Annabeth asks for his help, let's see. He tells Jason to close his eyes, and Jason wakes up a couple minutes later. Clovis assesses that the memories aren't just like, faded. They're gone. They've been completely taken. And he says usually lost memories can resurface, but this is different. And Annabeth asks, well, like, is it Lethe different? Like the river Lethe in the underworld? And Clovis is like, no, that's way too strong. So we know it's something powerful, but it's not strong enough to be Lethe, and it's not just the memories are there but forgotten. Even though Jason, like I said, can still summon them at willpower sometimes.
Mm-hmm. But it's not like normal amnesia, I guess, where they're all in your brain, you just can't access it anymore. They're just like took them and put them somewhere.
Only a god would have that kind of power.
Mm-hmm.
Jason makes the connection. It had to have been Juno, but why? And let's see. Here's where we get the idea of the Greek versus Roman gods, and it's Clovis who does bring them up. And he brings them up especially because Hypnos has a very different nature in Roman mythology than in Greek mythology. Clovis also brings up the idea of certain gods being Roman only, and we've met one in the Percy Jackson universe already. We've met Janus, who is a Roman only god. Pompona is another one that he brings up. I can't remember. I feel like I don't even want to make a guess. I can't remember the Roman ones because they get super specific with some of them. When it comes to the Roman aspects, they became more warlike. They stood for discipline, honor, strength. And when he goes on this little speech, Jason's like, "Yeah, good things." Like, could you scream anymore? I am Roman, dude.
I thought it was just funny too how Clovis was like, "Sure, buddy." It just it reminded me a lot of whenever we talk about the different versions of Medusa and how we tried to explain that, like, or you tried to explain how the ruler back then was extremely like controlling and territorial and all that kind of stuff, which should be obvious considering that Ovid got kicked out of his home because he wrote a poem about him. That's not a normal response ever for a government to do, but it's just, of course, he sees it as a good thing because it's all he knows. But it's like, yeah, they're a little bit more like stern than like the Greek kids would ever like be used to at all.
Yeah. Let's see. Clovis says, if Hera took your memory, only she can give it back. And if I had to meet the Queen of the Gods, I'd hope she was more in a Hera mood than a Juno mood. Can I go to sleep?
Imagine how scary Juno is.
Right? Let's see. Then we cut to Piper. And Piper, still unconscious, is having a dream about her dad. Their last day together was on a beach near Big Sur. And they were surfing. And she basically is having like a picnic lunch on the beach with her dad. She tries to pretend that it's an ordinary one, but we can tell it's not ordinary pretty quickly because like the sandwiches are wrapped in gold leaf paper and stuff. And she like lets us know he didn't make them. Like they were definitely made by a private chef eventually. Mm-hmm. We slowly start getting some of these details that are like eventually leading it to the conclusion that he's an actor of some sort. They don't fully say it in these ones, but you know, she mentions that the reason she learned about the Greek pantheon was because she was helping him out in a role where he played a Greek king. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, we know he's an actor of some sort, and we get the feeling he's very, very rich. Knowing Aphrodite, I'm picturing and this reference dates me, of course, but like a Brad Pitt-esque, you know, like male celebrity figure.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah. I mean, we do know this guy's native, but it has to be super attractive in order for Aphrodite to pay attention to him at all anyway. That honestly makes it seem like she would be best friends with Rachel if they just talked about being rich kids who hate being rich. Mm-hmm. Like, the reason her hair is cut the way it is because she does it herself. The reason why she asked for peanut butter and jelly sandwiches because she wants to feel like her parent made it and she's ordinary. And we do hear a little bit about, because like this turned out to be the day after she borrowed a BMW, which of course we know she did actually ask for it. She did legitimately borrow it. It's just the person that she borrowed it from doesn't remember she borrowed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. As they are sitting there, they decide to do a little Q&A session together, which apparently is described in a way where we know that they do this often when they get to sit with each other, of just like, we're going to shoot questions at each other. And Piper asks about her mom, which we find out is something she usually does ask about, and she doesn't get too much in the way of answers. But her dad actually does kind of answer it.
Yeah, he basically says that she disappeared after she was born, and he never heard from her, saw her again, ever. And so he has no idea if she's alive or not. I honestly don't remember if he even knows that she was like a god, and even knows that, or if he just thinks that she just like left and just never came back. I don't remember. But that's basically what he says, is that she just left and is gone for good.
Yes.
And has no idea if she would even be dead or not.
This is okay. So how they get into the Greek mythology talk is when she asks if he thinks that she's alive, he goes into something about your grandpa said if you walk far enough towards sunset, you'd come to a ghost country where you could talk to the dead. He said a long time ago you could bring the dead back, but then mankind messed it up. It's kind of a long story. And then they kind of switch into Greek mythology. He's like, yeah, Greeks and Cherokees are a lot alike. So she says, so you're saying you believe those stories. You think mom is dead. I don't believe the stories. They're fun to tell, but if I really believed in ghost country or animal spirits or Greek gods, I don't think I could sleep at night. I'd always be looking for somebody to blame. I don't know if she's alive, but I do think she might as well be in ghost country, Piper. There's no getting her back. If I believed otherwise, I don't think I could stand that either.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a conclusion he comes to. Let's see. In that talk about the Greek mythology stuff, we find out that his role as the Greek king was his biggest role to date. Seems kind of fitting that that's what he'd get kind of blessed with by Aphrodite, is like, yes, you can play something that represents me. Let's see. And then Piper's dad's assistant starts showing up. And Piper knows at this point the jig is up. Her stealing the BMW is going to be brought up and it's going to get taken care of. So she does tell her dad as like Jane well, Jane comes and talks to the dad. She does say, yes, I did it. And I hate the school we're in. I don't, or wait, what she says? He says, you told me you would try, Piper. Dad, I hate that school. I can't do it. I wanted to tell you about the BMW, but they've expelled you, he said. Car, Piper? You're 16 next year. I would buy you any car you want. How could you? You mean Jane would buy me a car? And here's where we find out that Jane, as his assistant, ends up doing a lot of the parenting for him.
Yeah. I felt a lot for Piper in this chapter because this is like a weird thing that happens sometimes with parents. Like, he's one that grew up poor. Like, she mentions that he grew up poor in Oklahoma on a reservation, and but because of being an actor, he's able to be rich now. And some people, when they experience that, they think that the thing that their kid needs that they didn't have growing up is like money and like things, that if you buy them things, that they'll be happy, and they'll have like a good childhood, because when you are poor, that is a big barrier of a lot of things, that you don't have any of those things growing up, and you wish that, and you miss out on a lot of stuff because you don't have it. And so I see how her dad did that, but he also has done that to the point that her dad is just like a checkbook. Like, he's not actually being a dad. He's like emotionally like cut off from her in that way, that the only time she ever sees him is when he's like giving her money for something. And so it makes sense of why she would do stuff like that and not care, because it's the only time she gets to talk to him is if he has to like give her something or solve a problem or something like that. And it's like giving your kid things, like, so that they have everything they need or more, is not a bad thing, but it's not the only thing. It's not the only thing that you have to do for parenting. You have to actually parent them. Even rich kids need have emotions and need help.
Yeah. And she's very clearly wanting his attention. Like, everything that we've heard, even in her head, has been screaming, I do not get enough attention. I just want to feel normal, please. Let's see. So we find out Jane has managed to negotiate with the police so that the dealership won't press charges on her. But the agreement is she does have to go to this boarding school. And I mean, knowing the Percy Jackson world the way that we do, part of me also is like, this feels also somewhat planned. I mean, everything is planned theoretically in a world where Greek mythology exists because fate exists in the Greek mythology world. But I couldn't help but think, like, that's pretty convenient that the dealership itself is like, oh yeah, we'll just let this girl go. Just send her to boarding school.
Yeah. This part one thing I liked about this is that it helps explain like why people call Piper a pick-me sometimes, because she doesn't like the makeup and stuff like that the other Aphrodite girls have. But this part explained like why she doesn't like those things, and it's not because she thinks she's like not like other girls or something in a way, like she's better than them because she doesn't like those things. It's because those things remind her of this world with her dad, and her dad not paying attention to her. And it's just one of those things Rick Riordan does a lot. Is the entire Percy Jackson series is basically taking the stereotype of like an ADHD overactive child and like making them very empathetic and like an actual person. And so this feels like another example of that, of him taking like the stereotype of I'm not like other girls girl, but like giving her like an actual valid reason for thinking that way that is not what you imagine especially when these books came out, there's so many just ridiculous books, especially like the book I think of the most is the Divergent books. I read the first two books before and I made it only like partway through the second one where I was like, this is really stupid. And I just stopped reading it. But there's so many books and stuff coming out during this time that was like that. And so I feel like this was his way of showing that stereotype, but like making it like a more real person, and giving them like an actual good reason. Because like she wouldn't like any of that stuff because it just reminds her of who her dad like thought she should be, how she would be happy or something when she just wanted her dad.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. So yeah, the meeting with her dad, or this like last memory with her dad, ends so abruptly that I feel like that, of course, adds to this vision she's having of her dad tied up and in flames and potentially being held prisoner, because they don't have a very good like goodbye in this moment where he's telling her, you're going to have to go off to this wilderness school. It's just go talk to Jane. She has all the details, and Jane hands her a plane ticket. So not even a real goodbye.
No, that's a horrible goodbye.
Yeah. Let's see. So then her dream changes. She is near a bonfire with purplish flames. The voice in her dream says, "This is your second warning. You'll do what you're told. You'll go on the quest, do our bidding, and you may walk away alive. Otherwise," and it gestures to the fire where Piper's father was hanging unconscious, tied to a stake. We also get the name of the giant that's talking to her here, which is Enceladus, which is the name of one of the giants. Essentially, what Rick Riordan is trying to replicate, and I can already see this one coming a million miles away, is after the Titan War, there was a giant war, and so this is kind of like, if you know that pattern, then you see it pretty quickly in this one. Let's see. Piper wakes up after that with Annabeth, and let's see, she's in the infirmary. She finds out she's been having nectar. Let's see, Argus is standing guard, and this was interesting to me. We find out that Argus is actually not doing so well right now because he's worried about Hera. He's hearing all of this stuff happening about Hera, and he's like, "That's my mom. I'm sad."
Yeah, they're trying not to have him cry because that would be like 80 million eyes all crying at the same time.
Exactly. So Rachel starts asking about, like, do you remember what you were seeing? And Piper doesn't tell them everything. She basically talks about the Hera parts of like vision she's been having. And she's like, yeah, she's been telling me to free her. She's trapped. She mentioned the earth swallowing us and a fiery one and something about the solstice. So kind of reinforcing what we've already got with Jason a little bit too. Let's see. Piper asks what's happened to Hera, and Rachel says, not sure. Annabeth and Jason were here for you, by the way. Jason didn't want to leave you, but Annabeth had an idea, something that might restore his memories, which is him going off to the Hypnos cabin. Let's see. Oh, this is something that gets Piper that Rachel does. So Rachel is like, don't worry, everything will be okay because you and Jason, your visions are lining up. And Piper's like, great, good news. So not only is your dad being held ransom by a cannibal giant, you also get to betray the guy you like. How awesome is that?
Yeah. I feel so much for Piper in this chapter. She thinks that the only way to do this is to betray them.
Yeah.
She's just really hard on herself. I feel like
Yeah.
very like protective of her like that. Like, I don't like you thinking about yourself this way.
Yeah, because what we're getting from this is that she thinks the way to get her dad back is to only follow this giant voice. And so far, I don't think following either one specifically is going to lead to a different place. And maybe that's just because I get, where the plot is going a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, to not see these things as connected to the giant talking and the Hera stuff, I do think is the kind of mistake only a new demigod would make. And so it kind of makes sense we're with new characters here where we're like, wait,
Mm-hmm.
that has to be connected somehow too.
Mm-hmm. And as the one other part from these chapters I remember that I can't remember if it happened already or not was Annabeth, that she's when Chiron won't tell her
Mhm.
about what's going on with Jason, like he actually won't tell her. She gets like upset because Chiron doesn't do that sort of stuff with her. Like Chiron will tell her stuff even when he
Mhm.
can't tell other people, and it just shows like how serious it is that he
Yeah.
can't even tell her. I thought that stuff was interesting. It's people talk about her being parentified by Chiron, which is definitely happening, but to me it's like a complicated thing, of course,
Mhm.
um, because it's one of those things that Chiron has to kind of do that with these kids if he wants them to leave camp and not die.
Yeah.
It's part of like the harshness of the world is that he has to kind of prepare them for what people will be expecting of them or what will happen to them when they leave. And so even if it's wrong, he kind of is forced to do that kind of stuff. And Annabeth is somebody that's always asking all these questions and figuring things out. And so
Mhm.
she's someone that plays that role for him. But even with this, it's like, oh, damn. Like, he won't even tell me what this means when he usually does. That means it's something really bad, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see why that would freak Annabeth out. And like, because Annabeth not only is the head of the Athena cabin at this point, but she also has just been treated like an elder, even in the earlier books when she wasn't necessarily regarded to as like one of the elder kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and her and Percy, especially right now, are very much like the leaders of camp.
Mhm.
She's the one rebuilding Olympus. Everybody's kind of like following her lead with how they talk to the other kids, the new kids at camp right now. And so
Mhm.
you would think that he would just say it if he physically could.
Yeah. Let's see. We end off the first Piper chapter with Rachel saying, I have a feeling you're going to get claimed at campfire tonight. Let's see. So Chiron does some announcements. The Ares cabin wants to have a regular game scheduled, how almost all of our books start out with like a capture the flag or something like that. Um, Chiron says, until the dragon is under control, that won't be possible. The other campers ask about Percy. Annabeth has to announce, I didn't find him. He wasn't at the Grand Canyon like I thought, but we're not giving up. We've got teams everywhere. Grover, Tyson, Nico, the Hunters of Artemis. Everyone's looking. We will find him. Chiron's talking about something different, a new quest. And so the crowd starts talking about, is this the great prophecy? The one that Rachel suddenly blurted out at the end of the last books.
Mm-hmm.
And people were like, no, come on, we just went through one prophecy, and doing that whole debate. Um, Piper whispers to Rachel, what's she talking about, the great prophecy? Um, well, Drew called down, you're the oracle. Has it started or not? And Rachel says, yes, the great prophecy has begun. And this is when she decides to recite what the prophecy was for everybody. 7 half-bloods shall answer the call. To storm or fire, the world must fall. And then Jason shoots to his feet and follows the next 2 lines in Latin. And Rachel's like, yeah, that means an oath to keep with final breath and foes bear arms to doors of death. How did you know? And Jason's like, yeah, I've heard that before. So this tells me two different things. It tells me, one, that the Roman camp's prophecies are spoken in Latin, probably almost exclusively. And then two, that, like, just off of vibes, Rachel was able to tell what he was saying.
Yeah.
No less. Handsome and smart. Let's see. So, yeah, that's the great prophecy. We hoped it might not happen for years, but I fear it's starting now. I can't give you proof, it's just a feeling. And like Drew said, some weird stuff is happening. The 7 demigods, whoever they are, have not been gathered yet. I get the feeling that some are here tonight, some are not. And, let's see. So, we don't know what they'll mean. The first one was the Titan War. The second great prophecy can predict something at least as bad. And then Chiron says, or worse. Which I think this is the moment where Chiron and Annabeth are muttering to each other, and it doesn't seem to be going well.
No.
But we do know, Rachel said, is that the first phase has begun, a major problem has arisen, and we need a quest to solve it. Hera, the queen of the gods, has been taken at this point. They're like, enough weird stuff's happening around this one dude. Clearly it's you. Let's see. We must save Hera to prevent a great evil, Rachel continued. Some sort of king from rising. For reasons we don't yet understand, it must happen by the winter solstice, only 4 days from now. And Annabeth reminds us that's the council day. And if the gods don't already know that Hera is missing, they're definitely going to know by the time that happens. Chiron then speaks up, and this is where I feel like this is one of those Roman mythology things that's being unspoken. It's the idea of dates holding extreme significance. Like Romans followed a very rigorous calendar of festivities with the gods and stuff. And days can be like, the days themselves can hold such superstition that it's like, on this day, we don't even do business because the vibes are just so bad. So Chiron says, winter solstice is a time of great darkness. Gods gather that day as mortals always have because there is strength in numbers. The solstice is a day when evil magic is strong. Ancient magic, older than the gods, it is a day when things stir. So it kind of gives a Roman sense of doom to me that he's like, ooh, that day is, vibes are bad. Vibes are really bad that we're talking about solstice again in a way that wasn't emphasized in the books before, because a lot of things happened on winter or summer solstice in the first few books.
Yeah, it's like normal for them. Something usually happens on those days regardless, and so they're just like, whatever. But for Roman people, they would be all scared by that.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the part where I'm like, how much does Jason not remember? Because then they start talking about, okay, but who's Jason's godly parent at this point? And he does a demonstration. Piper kind of like reminds him he has this coin that he can flip and it turns into his weapon. Apparently it comes up as a different weapon if it comes up heads or tails, is another thing we find here. Tails is more of a ranged weapon, and heads is like, I guess, a shorter sword. And someone from Aries' cabin just screams in the background, dude, I want one. And another Aries kid says, better than Clarice's electric spear, Lemaire? Is that the name of the spear? I didn't realize it had a name. And Jason's like, electric? Oh yeah, I could do something. Back away, everybody. And then he shoots off electricity. And that's when he's like, oh yeah, I'm Jupiter's kid. I mean, Zeus, Lord of the Sky.
It like makes sense to me is that like when people ask him certain questions, then it all of a sudden the info just like pops in his head. When it makes sense for him to remember it, but if he was trying to figure it out on his own, it just like won't work. There are similar things like that with Percy in the next book. Like the one part I remember the most about that with Percy kind of similarly acting the same way is they're at like some building that reminds him of Annabeth.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets really mad because he knows that, but he doesn't know why. And
Mm-hmm.
so like looking at the building, he's thinking of her, but he doesn't remember any of the memories of why looking at that sort of building would remind him of this girl that he has in his memory. And so it's a very similar thing of that thing that these like little things pop up in their brains, but there's like no context whatsoever behind them.
Yeah. Let's see. So this eventually triggers a actual quest from Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
So we get her, she gets taken over by the spirit of the Oracle. And when she speaks, she says, "Child of lightning, beware the earth. The giant's revenge the seven shall birth. The forge and the dove shall break the cage, and death unleash through Hera's rage." Um, Now, the thing, of course, that stuck out to me right away, and this was me once again just like jumping the gun before Rick Riordan says it for me, is the forge and dove shall break the cage, which very clearly is a reference to Hephaestus and Aphrodite. So Jason makes that connection. He's like, yeah, the prophecy says who I'm bringing with me already when they tell him the whole like, okay, you can choose two people thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um because yeah, there is a quick talk about who is he gonna bring. And that's where we find out Annabeth's like, yeah, no, I'm staying to look for Percy. You gotta find somebody else. And
Yep.
Drew's like, well, I'm an Aphrodite kid, and the dove thing is clearly about Aphrodite. But yeah, Jason, Leo, and Piper almost at the same time realize it has to be them, even though Piper has not been claimed at this point. And
Mm-hmm.
Piper very much wants her godly parent to be Athena. Um, so it ends up resulting in an argument between her and Drew, essentially, where Drew's like, I'm the Aphrodite kid, hello, like, it's supposed to be me. And Piper's like, no, I know I'm supposed to go on this quest. Something's supposed to happen here. And, let's see. So, Jason officially picks Leo. Um, okay, so Piper, the way she gets claimed is super interesting to me in this whole like because of course the showdown ends with her dramatically getting claimed. um and so her getting claimed is essentially a makeover. She all of a sudden she's wearing something different even though she doesn't even own a dress from what we find out. She's adorned in a beautiful white sleeveless gown that went down to her ankles with a v-neck so low it was totally embarrassing. Delicate gold armbands circled her biceps. An intricate necklace of amber coral and gold flowers glittered on her chest and her hair. Oh God, what's happened? And so she has turned super, super girly. Everything that we found out she doesn't even like. She's basically a Halloween caricature of what Aphrodite is. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you really think about it, with this white sleeveless, like deep V-neck dress, it's basically a bad Aphrodite Halloween costume.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, we leave the Piper with that announcement of her getting claimed. Chiron saying, "Hail Piper McLean, daughter of Aphrodite, lady of the doves, goddess of love." But there's something so unsettling about it because it feels so antithetical to who Piper is at this point.
Yeah. Her version of everything would be very different than what Aphrodite usually is. And so
Yeah.
it doesn't feel good at this point anyway that she's an Aphrodite child.
Yeah,
Besides,
it's
she gets to go on the quest.
like, yeah, besides the fact that it means she actually does get to go.
Mhm.
But yeah, that just I mean, I knew it was coming, but the way it came was so interesting. And I kind of love it for Aphrodite that her claiming her kids isn't just like, oh, let me put a little symbol on top of your head. It's a full makeover.
Mhm. And that also might be her just like messing with Piper because
Piper
Piper
especially,
doesn't because Piper doesn't want to be like how she would like her children to be in the Western world anyway.
yeah.
And so
Yes.
she's like making her be like that.
Oh my gosh. Aphrodite would be the parent to like dance mom, like her child's existence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that is where we left for the Lost Hero chapter so far. Um, I mean, it feels like it took a long time to get to where they were actually on the quest. We're like 150-ish pages deep at this point. So, a lot of lead up, which isn't that unusual for these books, but it's kind of interesting to have him have to introduce three different characters so deeply because we're going into three different characters' brains with this one.
Yeah, it's not just one. And so it would take longer because we're having to hear from all of their perspectives instead of just Percy.
Yeah. Which, I mean, does make me look forward to. I know in later books we get like Annabeth's perspective at times too and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Do more Lost Hero, and we'll do some final Percy Jackson D&D themed things.
Yep. We'll see you
All
guys
right.
next week.
See you next week. Bye.